What's going on, YouTube Metal Complex here, and today I'm going to be doing a knife review that I've been wanting to do for a very long time. This is the Benchmade Infidel. This is the larger one. I'm sure a lot of you guys are wondering, is that the Blade HQ exclusive OD green and black S30V version? No, it's not. It's actually a very rare law enforcement and military elite edition. I'll show you guys the box here so you can check the model number on that. There it is. 3300 BK OD-1101 Infidel. And you can tell this is an older Benchmade. These particular versions are very, very rare and command high prices on the secondary market. But considering the Infidel has not really changed a whole lot in design and is still offered in this format in one way or another, I'm going to review it like this. This is an unused version. It was actually lent to me by my good friend, Spirited Whiskey. You can follow him on Instagram at Spirited Whiskey. He's got an awesome collection. Like Jeff, he supplies me with a lot of crazy high-end custom knives, as well as super high-end awesome production knives. So thank you very much. I absolutely appreciate it. Before we get started here, if you are new to my channel or you've been around for a long time, either way, if you'd like to support me, you can follow the link in the description to my Patreon. Have a look around. There are different tiers, and there are some benefits such as these stickers if you join certain tiers. I've got once a week Patreon exclusive stuff and some other stuff that's going on. You can read about it there. As of right now, if you join, you will get a shout out. So if you want me to plug your Instagram or your YouTube channel or whatever, you want me to say something funny, as long as it's appropriate for YouTube, I don't mind. The support would mean the world to me, and it helps cover costs associated with this channel. So I would appreciate it. Anyways, let's go ahead and get a measurement on this guy. Overall length of the large Infidel, remember there is a smaller one, coming in at about 9 inches. This is a big OTF. From tip to scale, you are definitely looking at a 4-inch dagger blade. Older Infidels, there were some versions of this that came in a drop point blade. I believe those are discontinued. I believe the only blade shape that you can get anymore is this dagger style blade. And that's probably what I would go with. I mean, that's an advantage to an OTF. Obviously, here's a disadvantage to an OTF. It's an OTF. In many places, these are illegal. This particular OTF is going to be illegal for a lot of reasons in a lot of different places. Number one, it's automatic. Out the front, automatic. Number two, it's actually sharp on both sides. Number three, it's a 4-inch blade. So those are going to be some things that are going to hold a lot of people back from being able to acquire this or at least carry it. So for those of you, this is going to be more so just for entertainment. But for the rest of you who are fortunate enough like me to live in a state where it's okay to carry these, you might actually get some useful information out of this, or at least that's the goal anyway. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons. The first one's going to be the largest knife I'm going to compare it with, and it's a different knife than normal, just to hint at an upcoming battle. This is my new Microtech Combat Troodon Hellhound. That is also, actually it's a little over 9 inches if you count the glass breaker. If you don't though, they are exactly the same length. There has been an ongoing kind of battle between these two in terms of, you know, the big, bad, double action US made OTFs out there. Some people like the simple symmetrical look of the Benchmade Infidel, and some people kind of like the offset, crazy aggressive nature of the Microtech Combat Troodon. Which do you like? I can help out with the teeter-totter there by providing a battle video in the very near future. But for today, we're going to be talking about the Benchmade Infidel. Anyways, up against the Ontario Rat Model 1. Rat 1 coming in at 8.6 inches overall, so you can see there. Infidel is a very large knife. How about up against the Spyderco PM2? PM2 is coming in at 8.3 inches overall. Again, Infidel bigger. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue? Ritter Hogue is coming in at about 8 inches. How about up against the Bug Out? Bug Out's coming in at 7.5 inches overall. And last but not least, the Spyderco Para 3. The Para 3 is coming in at 7.25 inches overall. Something we did not do just now is measure the actual cutting edge. Cutting edge on this guy, turn my tape measure the right way. You're looking at, exactly 3.75 inches of cutting edge on both sides. So what are we looking at for materials here? Well, we're looking at 6061 T6 aluminum, and on this particular version, D2 steel. On the newer standard versions, they still come in D2. And I gotta admit, guys, I don't know if it's D2 or if it's CPM D2. A lot of people are gonna say, it's D2, because if it was CPM, it would say CPM. That is actually not always the case. In the case of Medford, they actually use CPM D2, but they list the steel as simple D2 on websites and on retailer sites. Sometimes on super high-end knives, for whatever reason, unlike the difference between CPM 154 and 154 CM, that's always labeled. Sometimes on a super high-end knife, it actually is CPM D2, but they just list it as D2. I do not know if this is the powder metallurgic form of D2, if that's what they've always used. Maybe they started with ingot D2 and then they moved to CPM D2. I have no idea. But I'll tell you this. This exact color setup, OD green and black, can be purchased on Blade HQ, their exclusive version in CPM S30V, which is, in my opinion, a much better steel considering what you're paying for it. And I just like S30V all the way around better. I mean, I like D2, but S30V I think all the way around is a better steel. It's very balanced. It's made for folding knives. Considering what I would and would not use this knife for and where it's meant to be used, at least my idea of theoretically where it's meant to be used as a tool, I think that the S30V version is the best. And as far as I can tell, it's roughly the exact same price as the standard version, which you can also get there. What they need to do, in my opinion, real quick before I get too far into this, is they need to make a black version with a black blade and a black version with their tumbled blade like they currently do in the standard version and offer that in S30V. Benchmade, this is a popular model. It's an expensive model. It's a polarizing model. Upgrade the steel. If Blade HQ is doing it for the same amount of money, and you know, I just feel like that's what it should be. Anyways, let's weigh it. It's a big knife, right? Pretty thick, chunky OTF. You know what would help is if we turned it on. Oh my goodness. Wake up. 5.01 ounces, 5 ounces. This is a 5-ounce knife with a 4-inch blade. Carry profile is great. Despite it being a chunky knife, I can tell you here, here's the shape of the thing in your pocket. How about up against the Para 3 and the Para 2? Two knives with awkward carry profiles that no one seems to complain about. Yeah. It's easy to carry. It is definitely thicker this way. It's thicker than my aftermarket scales on the PM2, and it's thicker than the standard scales on the Para 3. Let's go to this side. Yeah. Not so much that it's going to be a big deal. I did walk around with this in my pocket, and it is the profile that makes this a little bit easier to carry. Now, depending on what type of pants you're wearing, if you're somebody who likes to walk around in basketball shorts all day, sure, you can carry it in there, but you're going to feel it swinging around in there. If you're somebody who wears really tight pants, really thin material pants, yeah, you're definitely going to feel it. I would recommend the smaller one. If you're wearing regular khakis, regular jeans, or a heavy-duty pant material, this is not a problem at all. It's actually very, very comfortable to carry. All right. So what are we looking at for materials? Well, again, I kind of covered that. This is D2. You can get them in S30V. What we have here, I believe, is a sort of Cerakote is what Benchmade does. This blade and the design of it has remained largely the same since the Infidel came out. Now, I remember the Benchmade Infidel being the very first ultra high-end, like, you know, this, to me, this was a movie knife for a long time. Like the OTF in general. Then I found out OTFs exist. They're real things that are just illegal everywhere, or back when I first discovered them, they were. And then I discovered there are companies who make way better knives. They make knives out of premium materials, knives that get really expensive, that are the difference between a US-made knife and a non-USA made knife back in 2012 or so, 2011, when I started to really kind of lean into this. And I was like, well, do they make super high-end US OTFs? Yes, they do. Now, I don't remember exactly when this knife came out, but I remember finding it and going, holy cow, $400. So I look up a YouTube video and fell in love with it. I mean, for a lot of people, it's the same thing, the symmetrical look. It has that very movie OTF look. It makes the click, click, click sound, and it's just so cool. So initially, you know, everybody's first question they're not familiar with OTFs is, does it do the thing where you hold it up to something? I still run into people all the time. Hold it up to something. Does it go right through it? No, it doesn't. It derails. It's still going to poke pretty hard, so I wouldn't do that. But it derails, which is a safety system. It's supposed to do that. All OTFs do that. Microtechs do that. You pull it out, and you're good to go. Why? Because there's no reason to hold this up to something and push the button. That's ridiculous. We're not ninjas. None of you guys watching this are ninjas. I don't know what sort of tactical circumstance you'd have to be in where that would be a task that you would ask of something like this. Now, to me, this is a tool. This is a soldier's tool. In some situations, I would imagine it could be a self-defense catalyst, but I'm not a self-defense expert, so I can't speak to that. So I'm going to be reviewing this as a tool. We do have, of course, D2 steel on this. Like I said, for the amount of money you're going to pay, I wish that they had different color schemes on Blade HQ so that people could get what they wanted, but the S30V version, the Blade HQ exclusive, is definitely the way to go. I am unaware of any other exclusive versions of this, though. That doesn't mean that they don't exist. Fit and finish on this guy really looks good. Everything looks symmetrical. Getting that fuller all the way down to the tip and then getting that dividing line to come down to the tip. You can see there right at the tip, it's just barely off. But getting the fuller to line up with the grind is pretty good. Now, a lot of people look at that and shake their head and go, let me tell you something. I've had a lot of OTFs. I've owned a lot of Microtechs. I've looked at a lot of Benchmades. On these double-edged knives, it's hit or miss. It doesn't matter how much money you're paying for it. That's just kind of a difficult grind to get exactly right. Some people are going to agree with me and some people aren't. But listen, it really doesn't bother me all that much. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. If it's really going to bother you, get a single-edged OTF. The blade is plenty sharp on this particular one. It is completely unused. You can see a couple of places on this knife where it is simply just rubbing a little bit, coming in and out. Now, that's something that occurs with almost all OTFs as well. It's less noticeable on one that is tumbled or satin. So people out there saying, I have one and it doesn't rub. Well, it's likely tumbled or satin. And if they say that it's DLC, then I would ask to see a picture of it because in my experience, like I said, the ones with the DLCs are the ones that are going to show. So that's just going to be the case. There has to be a little bit of play in these. Now, I know that there's a $1,500 custom out there that, doesn't move. You're going to pay a lot more money for everything to be set up exactly right so that it doesn't move and it doesn't rub. But on the rest of these, a little bit of play is completely understandable, especially considering stuff can get lodged, debris can get lodged on the inside here. So you might want a little bit of breathing room, for that thing coming in and out to move a little bit. It's completely normal to have a little bit of play. And with that play is going to come, in some circumstances, some very, very minor rubbing. Considering how old this particular one is and how many times it's likely been fired, I would say the point of that, the part of this that you should focus in on is, wow, that thing is still not failing. There are little teeny tiny, almost unnoticeable rub marks, and this thing is firing just as hard as any of the new ones that I have access to down at the shop in my local area. So I don't have a problem with that. I'll tell you what I do have a problem with. These. Why? Why do we still have the orbs there, Benchmade? I don't like that. That looks humorous, and it's too bad. I think there's a million ways you could have ended that fuller, and that would be one of my last choices. But okay, whatever. Not that big of a deal. It says Benchmade, has the Benchmade logo. Might be a little bit different now. You can see there, this is a McHenry design. I don't know why we need the patent number on there, but we do. That's about it. Moving down to the handle, you can see we have this OD green handle. Everything has been nicely rounded off. There's no sharp edges anywhere. Unfortunately, we do have what I believe are, let me find my T6 here. Got my trusty WIA bit selector and WIA driver that are just fantastic. Down in the comments, or I'm sorry, down in the description, you can find that stuff for yourself, as well as a lot of the really awesome knives that I talk about every single day on this channel, or showing size comparisons, and many, many other knives, whether they be budget or more expensive. There's also EDC tools and gear, and everything's down there. Just sorted out so that you can easily find what you're looking for and scratch that itch. Anyways, I believe these screws are T6. Yeah, they are. And that kind of stinks, but I'll tell you this, I'm not somebody who's interested in really taking my OTF apart. And I know, perhaps, some of you actually are in the military and you're thinking, well, if I'm going to be using this in the environment that I plan to be using it in, it might be convenient to take this thing apart. There's a single spring in there, and then there's the chassis and the rail thing. If you feel confident in doing that, then okay. You'll be using T6, you'll be dealing with T6 heads and a T6 bit. So just be careful, You can completely take these apart, clean them, and put them back together. It's not advised. I don't know what Benchmade's stance is on that. As far as I understand, they have a good warranty, but obviously if you mess something up during disassembly, it's going to be harder for them to warrant anything. So just be careful with it. Let's talk about the operating switch. This operating switch is awesome. And while it doesn't fire as hard as a Microtech, I found that in practice, I really enjoy the switch on this because, you know, after the novelty of a new knife purchase wears off, you are left with the item by itself, which is simply a cutting tool, right? So in terms of a cutting tool that's meant to be convenient, I've talked about this before in my OTF versus side opening video. I like that the operational switch, number one, is easy to operate, and number two, does not bite into my finger. These little teeth or these little ridges down here are actually somewhat rounded off, and they're actually, it's actually pretty comfortable to operate. On top of that, I think this is a well-known thing, but considering how this sits in your pocket and where I'm gonna grab it from here, as I'm pulling it out, my thumb is already in the position to fire it. Whereas on an OTF like this, where the switch is on the side, I'm pulling it out like this, and then I pull it out, and then I have to reposition my finger in order to fire it. That's fine, it's not that big of a deal, but the Benchmade Infidel is very convenient. In and out of the pocket, it's very, very convenient, and I like that. What I don't like is it seems like, and the ones down at my local shop are like this, they seem to have more play than normal. And the only reason I say that, if the Benchmade Infidel was the only one I had ever handled, it wouldn't have been a big deal to me. The Lightning OTF has more play than the Benchmade Infidel. The Benchmade Infidel has a medium amount of play, and then the Combat Troodon has very little, almost no play whatsoever, but there is a little bit of play in there. So if you shake it, it's going to do this. That's every single OTF or every single Benchmade Infidel I have ever handled. And I've handled 3 or 4 of the large ones, including this one, and 3 or 4 of the small ones. They're all like that. It doesn't seem to cause any issues with operation. It's just something that's it's gonna nag at you a little bit if you get it. But the operating switch is fantastic. I've done this over and over and over again, and it will, there you go, there's an example of how to get it to fail. If you do that over and over again, or you keep pulling that so quick that it doesn't want to keep up, then it might fail. But that's gonna happen. That's happened on my Troodon before if you keep going over and over. But in terms of a standard deployment, firing it out, pulling it back in, then yeah, it doesn't seem to want to fail. Anyways, moving on here, you can see on the back there's a little bit of a drainage hole, and it appears that this looks like a steel plate on the inside. I don't know if that's for structural integrity or what. For whatever reason, there's little jimping lines that serve no purpose on the inside there, but that's okay, no big deal. The traction lines on here they look nice. I guess, you know, in a situation like this, they might offer a little bit of additional traction, but nothing crazy, it just looks nice. The pocket clip is amazing. I love this pocket. It's so good. Oh my gosh, this thing is a million times easier to carry just because of that pocket clip. I can get it over the seam of my pants with one hand and back out. This knife is fantastic in terms of, you know, a type of knife that it's in your pocket when you need it, you pull it out, it's ready to go, you fire it, you use it, you retract it and put it back in your pocket. This might be the easiest knife considering it has the switch on this side. This might be the most convenient cutting tool that I have ever carried. Perhaps its only downfall is in the dimensions, the carry profile. It's a little bit thick and it weighs 5 ounces, which is not going to make everybody happy. But oh my goodness, it is so convenient. Absolutely. Again, if it's legal to carry in your area. And then the rest of the knife is much the same. So to recap, I don't like the shape of the end of the fuller. I wish they were all in S30V, but considering you have the Blade HQ version in S30V, that's great. I don't like the T6 screws, but okay. The fact that it is an OTF means that there are situations where the knife can fail, but it has that derailing safety system. It shouldn't be too bad. And it's a little bit thick, but you know, other than that, there's really only one glaring issue with this, and it's the price. This is a very expensive knife. Now, when I say expensive, I don't necessarily mean overpriced. I would have said that if the Blade HQ version with S30V did not exist. Let's keep in mind this is a 100% US made OTF. It is made very well, and it's made with industry standard materials for really high-end OTFs. Considering how much, you know, I kept asking the question, why don't we see more titanium OTFs? Well, number one, it would make the knife a little bit heavier than aluminum. And number two, the cost of manufacturing all these parts, all these moving parts, and getting the tolerances exactly right in the United States is already high. To keep some of those costs down and not get so far beyond what a lot of people already consider to be overpriced, they keep it in aluminum, right? So that's why we see so many automatic knives, both side opening and OTF, in aluminum, right? So yes, you can go out and buy a Lightning OTF for 40 bucks and it'll probably serve you just fine. I have personal experience with that knife. It's fine. The steel doesn't last. And anybody who says that it's got okay steel on it, you're kidding yourself. The steel wears down almost immediately. I've had to sharpen my brother's more than once. My own, it's fine. You can get a good OTF for under 100. There are a few companies out there, and if you want to do that, that's fine. Again, you're probably not going to get S30V on those. Yes, you can buy an Ultratech for $270 or so. You can buy the Guardian Tactical Recon. You can buy the Microtech Dirac. There's some fantastic examples of OTFs between the $200 and $300 mark out there. There's a good argument for those. This is one of the bigger boys. This is a big knife. You get with it, you're getting premium fit and finish. You're getting Benchmade's warranty, which in and of itself, I've kind of come to the conclusion that warranty to me is worth like an additional $30 to $50 depending on what type of knife I'm looking at. In this case, in the case of the Infidel, it's one of those where it's worth a little bit more to me. It's like when if you buy a really, really nice vehicle. For those of you who don't know, I used to sell cars. You buy a $65,000 truck. Well, let me tell you something. That bumper-to-bumper warranty for the first 30,000 miles or 45,000 miles, whatever it is worth a lot more to you on a vehicle like that than a $18,000 Toyota Yaris or a $15,000 Toyota Yaris. Why? Because there's a lot more moving parts. There's a lot more premium parts, a lot more electronics on a super high-end vehicle like that has the same type of warranty, right? So Benchmade's lifetime warranty that for the most part, most of the components of should be fully applicable to both this knife and something like, their Super Freak, which is a great knife, but less expensive. To me, that warranty is worth a lot more, so I can justify it there. What's the price on this? Why are you dancing around? The price on this guy is $435. It started out at, I seem to remember it was like 400 bucks at one point, then they moved that, then it was like 415, and now, they're creeping up on it. Okay, all right, fine. Is it worth the money? I mean, you can get a great US OTF for 270 bucks. What does the Ultratech cost? 270 bucks. If you're looking for the big, robust, are you gaining some sort of like tactical advantage or advantage in durability with buying this, like paying the extra money and have a bigger OTF? I don't know. I don't think so. The nice thing about the Benchmade Infidel is that you can actually get into it. On the Microtech knives, not only can you not, they do not want you to get into this. You can see the tri-wing screws, and it's spelled out in their warranty. They're like, please don't get into this. Benchmade, I think, is a little bit different. I don't know what their exact policy is on this, but they don't make it impossible, if you decide you want to aggressively void the warranty because you don't care, either way, you should be able to get into it fairly easily considering the body screws are T6. So that's nice. Not all of them are like that. Benchmade also does have some less expensive ones. Here's the thing. We're coming up on a price where this is a type of knife that is not going to be accessible to every person. It's not going to be something that's legal to carry. It's in a price range that definitely not everybody can afford. I make purchases in this price range somewhat often, and I can tell you I can't afford it. I have to sell knives to pay for things, to pay for knives in this price range. So, is this a well-made knife? Yes. Do I think it would serve you well? Yes. In fact, situations where I've carried OTFs, even OTFs as inexpensive as the Lightning that do not have anywhere near the same tolerances. I don't care what anybody says. The Lightning does not have the same tolerances as a super high-end OTF. It's not the same thing. And even those seem to do pretty well, even in dusty, dirty environments. You're going to have to clean it out every now and then. You might have to clear some debris. I've had one time a pebble got lodged in a Lightning and I had to take it apart and move the pebble out. But they're pretty reliable, I would recommend using REM oil. I believe that's what Microtech uses in their factory. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. REM oil is a dry lubricant that leaves little flakes of Teflon behind. That's very good for the internal moving parts of your OTF. Don't drench it. couple of sprays, and then maybe 10 to 15 in and out, so you can get that stuff in there and all the moving parts. That's really good for your OTF. But you're going to have to take care of it. Is the knife well made? Can I recommend it? So somebody who's got the money and they've decided, I am going to buy an OTF, and am I going to be happy with the Benchmade Infidel if I spend the money on it? Yes, I think you will. I think it'll serve you really well. Is this a knife that I can recommend to every single person? No, it's really, really expensive, and it's an OTF, and most of us don't need that. Most of us don't, like, for the vast majority of people, honestly, the Spyderco Para 3 is overkill, right? I mean, there's very few knives that I can legitimately, honestly recommend to everybody, but I would say a good example of a knife that I could recommend to everybody would be like a Victorinox knife, right? This is one of those where, you know, possibly somebody who could absolutely make use of every last little aspect of this knife might be a soldier or somebody who works outside full time and knows that they're going to be in situations where they might have one hand busy. That's where this knife shines. If you regularly are doing types of tasks where you might need a tool, cutting apparatus, or something that can serve as a different type of tool, even though it may not be designed for that, because you have one hand busy, an OTF is a fantastic knife for that. Pull it out of your pocket, deploy it, use it, retract it, put it back in your pocket so it's safe. That's great. For those people, yes, I can absolutely recommend this. For everybody else, no. I will say this though, despite this not being a knife that I can recommend to everybody, it is definitely one of my favorite knives of all time. I think it's a little bit, overrated. You know, I've kind of brought that up before. It's kind of like I look at the standard steel and I look at what it is and its competition out there and what they want for it, and the combination of all those things. Sometimes the Benchmade Infidel gets put up on a pedestal, and while it is very good, it's kind of like, it's not as good as people say. Despite that, still, ironically, it's still one of my favorite knives ever. I'm trying to be honest with you guys and tell you guys exactly what's in my head and how I'm feeling about this. It's still one of my favorite knives ever. So it's definitely going to go on my favorite folding knives of all time playlist, just not on my most recommended. Spirited Whiskey, thank you so much for lending this to me. If you are interested in this exact version, if you're still here and you're like, I really want that, I wonder if he'll let it go. I don't want to spoil anything, but you will have an opportunity to obtain this exact knife from myself and Spirited Whiskey, more so Spirited Whiskey, in the very near future. More details to come on that. If you are watching this video 2 years in the future, this knife is probably no longer available. So check the date on the upload. Anyways, guys, that's going to be pretty much it for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on this Metal Complex logo right here and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.